You know, it almost feels like beekeeping is being made more complicated on purpose. Help me think through this. Is beekeeping actually more complicated on purpose for a reason? Hey, everybody, David Burns, good to be with you. Happy Monday. Hope you're having a good week already. I want to talk to you today about some of the implications that beekeeping may be becoming more complicated on purpose. So let's talk about that today, because it seems like beekeeping used to be kind of simple, right? It was like put bees in a box, see what happens, maybe make some honey, everything's okay. But we have had some things happen that has made beekeeping more complicated because, recently in the last 20 or 30 years, we've had the introduction to our country of small hive beetle, the Varroa destructor mite. And so, we've had a lot of things happen to bees. We had colony collapse disorder. So to be fair, we have had a lot of challenges thrown at beekeeping and beekeepers. Certainly that's the case. And but we have to come back, kind of circle back around, because the whole market is full of so many beekeeping products. It's so full of so many clubs and conferences and books and studies, and it's overwhelming sometimes to kind of sift through all of this. And I've watched beekeepers over the last 30 years, and I mentor hundreds of beekeepers a year, so I get to hear their feedback. And what I'm hearing from most beekeepers that are new to beekeeping within 1 to 5 years of beekeeping is that they are just overwhelmed with all the different things that are thrown at them. So I wonder if we really need to expose all the new beekeepers to everything that's going on in beekeeping. In other words, it'd be nice if new beekeepers could be introduced into beekeeping and start beekeeping, get a feel for it, get introduced to it, and slowly start learning over time instead of all at once becoming a new beekeeper. And then you go to a conference or you read some material, and all at once you have to select from just hundreds and literally thousands of products, either in a beekeeping catalog. I mean, when I started, back when I was a kid, no, when I started beekeeping, here's how many types of smokers there were. Here's how many types of hive tools there were. Seriously, I'm not joking. You had one hive tool, one type of hive tool, man. You had one type of smoker. That was it. Now, I don't know how many types of hive tools there are. Gosh, I'd say there's probably at least 20 or 30 different types and variations of a hive tool. And of course, we know there's so many various types of smokers, even jumping all the way from the traditional smoker that you put stuff in and light it up, now to smokers that are electronic. They burn a vapor, they make a vapor instead of burning fire to make smoke. And so that's just a tip of the iceberg, how things have become, I guess, not really, well, complicated, yes, but there's just so many more options. There's so many different things. Now, the reason for this is, number one, there's a lot of varied approaches to beekeeping. So let's just be honest. There's a lot of ways to keep bees. And I think that makes a lot of people confused. There's a lot of different techniques. Let's take something as simple as harvesting honey. A lot of different techniques can be used to harvest honey. If you want to, you can take a frame out of a hive. Let's say you're stranded on a deserted island somewhere and you found a beehive. You could take the comb, because you want some nourishment, get the bees off of it, and then you could just squeeze the comb until all the honey runs down through your t-shirt or something, if you wanted to do that, and you have honey. Now, that's the most simplest way to do it, but we have made it so complicated with so many different options now that there are so many different ways to harvest honey. Now you can use a hot knife, you can use different type of extracting equipment, motor-driven equipment, digital equipment. We have things that you can pour honey into that will precisely measure the amount of honey and fill a bottle perfectly for you. I'm surprised it doesn't put the lid on it. Maybe it does. Anyway, it's just, you look at all that and you go, oh my gosh, what do I need? What do I need to buy? So there's so many varied approaches. Let's take another varied approach. Let's take dealing with the Varroa destructor mites. Most beekeepers nowadays know they have to deal with mites or they'll lose their colony. So let's say, look at all the varied approaches to dealing with mites. All the way from one extreme says to do nothing, to let bees just figure it out. That's never going to work out good. All the way to the other side of the swinging of the pendulum and say we have to treat almost every week, just treat, throw chemicals in there, and kill our mites. And then there's somewhere in the middle where you don't want to go without treating, but you don't want to just douse them with chemicals every single minute. And so you're confused about the varied approaches to controlling the Varroa destructor. That's just another example. And then let's take one more example of varied approaches is hive management. A lot of people today have a lot of different approaches to how they manage the beehive. How they not just manage equipment, what equipment they use or don't use in the hive, but their style of working bees is entirely different. They may work them in a single deep. They may never let them swarm. Other people may work them in 2 deeps. They may make splits out of those 2 deeps. It's just so many different approaches. And so with YouTube, here you are watching YouTube, and here I am teaching on YouTube with so many videos. You type in the word beekeeping and you're just like, oh my gosh, this guy said this woman said that, and I just don't know what to do, especially if you're brand new to beekeeping within 5 years. You wonder if these other plans work because there's so many varied approaches. Now, the second reason I think beekeeping is made complicated is because of evolving knowledge. We are learning more about honeybees. And with this, I guess, evolving knowledge that's coming into beekeeping, we respond to that evolving knowledge. Like, oh, we just found out this about bees. We just found out about this about, and I'll give you some examples. Let's say when the mites first hit the US, we began treating with chemicals, right? Chemicals were given to beekeepers like fluvalvinate, Coumaphos, pretty potent stuff. You throw it in the hive, you try to kill the mites. And all at once, after several years, evolving knowledge revealed that these 2 chemicals were being absorbed in the wax and probably had a very negative effect on the reproduction of the honeybee in the colony, among other things. And so we started to back away from the synthetic treatment of mites and getting off that chemical treatment treadmill, because that was evolving knowledge that was gained by the beekeeping community. And so with evolving knowledge, we respond and we think, oh, we just learned this, we just learned that. And so we do have evolving knowledge that makes us take the scientific information that scientists are showing us that is good for bees or bad for bees, and we respond to that, hoping to keep our bees healthier. And then the third part of all of this equation, the part that I really want to talk about, is the onslaught of products that has really just saturated the beekeeping community. So many different products. It is just unbelievable. The products that you can use, the products that I can use. Now, to be fair, here's the deal with products. I kind of like some of the new products. I like the J-Hive, I like the J-Hook hive tool. That's kind of a new product over the last, decade or so. And I like how it works. It's a different type of hive tool. I think in my mind, it's better than the traditional one. I like handling it easier. It's harder to smash small hive beetle with it. So it has a disadvantage. I usually wind up carrying both of them, one to pry up frames, one to smash beetles. But anyway, there are some things in the new product line of beekeeping that has really been beneficial. On the other hand, hey, let's don't be gullible. All right, I'm just going to say it like it is. Okay, let's be honest. There's a lot of stuff out there that isn't helping us at all. It really isn't. And people are continuing making things and introducing us to things in beekeeping, telling us that it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. And it is pretty impressive, because if you go and look at it on a table, like at a vendor table or something, you're not in the yard, you haven't tried it, and you look at it, it kind of looks like it might work, and you don't know, right, until you try it. So we have just this plethora of stuff that's available. And I think what happens a lot of times is when a beekeeper starts losing their ability to see their colony grow the way they think it should, they start losing bees and all, it's easy to turn to products to save the day. It really is. It's easier to say, I lost my bees and I think it was because I didn't have the right fill in the blank. I didn't have the right top cover. I didn't have the right bottom board. There's so many different types of top covers you can have. You can have a plain top cover, migratory top cover. You can have a top cover that has insulation in it. You can have a plastic top cover, a wooden top cover. It just goes on and on with the different kind of top covers you can have. The bottom board, you can have a screen bottom board, a solid bottom board. You can have a bottom board with a slide in, this and that, a bottom board that does this and that. You're just like, okay, I lost my bees. I'm pretty sure I need to change my bottom board. I need to change my top cover, or I need to try this new thing that you put on top of this and make this does that and that does this. It's just like I want to throw products to solve my problem. And there's one thing that I want to share about all these products is that I think it's fine to use all these different products if you already have a good handle on beekeeping and you're just wanting to get over being bored of beekeeping and you're thinking about quitting, but you thought, you know what, I'm bored of a Langstroth hive. I want to try a different hive just to kind of get me not to be so bored. And so you might want to try a vertical horizontal Langstroth hive. You may want to try an AZ hive. You may want to try a Lands hive. You may want to try a different hive because you're just bored. Let's face it. The hobby maybe has become boring to you. And so in those cases, some of these new products, and if you have money to burn, you can just take that money and just burn it on some stuff that you want to play with in this hobby, and it might keep you kind of excited about beekeeping. I don't know, with this present economy the way that it is, and with beekeepers, most beekeepers are pretty tight, not wanting to spend a lot of money. I don't see us really wanting to burn money. But I am fascinated by the amount of things that beekeepers spend buku dollar on. I'm talking about thousands upon thousands. Hobbyists, not commercial, not sideliners. Hobbyists with just less than 10 colonies will spend thousands upon thousands of dollars for an extractor. I've seen it. And I'm like, whoa, my goodness, that is mind-blowing to me, But I understand that some people just want to put a lot of money in their hobbies. But I'm going to circle all this around and kind of take all of these thoughts of mine and say that I really think the answer is not in trying to figure out the right approach to beekeeping. That's what we all want to know. What's the right approach? I hear this approach, that approach, this approach. I think if I can finally find somebody that tell me what to do, I'll take their approach. Well, listen, your approach needs to be your approach. What works for you, where you live and how your bees respond to your techniques and all in your area. It's really your approach. And you really need to drill down and learn the approach that works for you. So even though, yes, there are a lot of different approaches, you can take the simple ones like there's a hobby, the sideliner, the commercial beekeeper. And if you got one hive and you are following the techniques of a commercial beekeeper, some of that when it comes to biology of bees is transferable. Some of it is not when it talks about semi-trucks, fork trucks, $1,000 beekeeping equipment to make things happen in a commercial. It's going to be different in the hobby field. So you can't just take one person's approach. You have to really see where you're at. The other thing is evolving knowledge. Okay, there has been evolving knowledge in honeybees. The genome of honeybees. But on the other hand, you have to start with what you know. You can't learn it all in 1 year or 2 years, or I don't even think you can learn it in 20 years. I really don't. I've been keeping bees almost 30 years now, and there's so much I'm learning every single day. So this evolving knowledge we have to be open to and just realize that we can't wait until we know everything to really get a handle on beekeeping. We got to jump in there and add to the knowledge we have as it evolves and make our changes. And finally, we talked about products. When it comes to products, beekeeping to me, I think it really once was kind of a DIY, do it yourself. It really was. People oftentimes made their own hives. When I started, I made my own hives. I sawed boards and built my own hives. I think I bought the frames, but I built my own boxes. It was a DIY thing. I painted my own boxes. A lot of people, when they started beekeeping in the old days, if they didn't make their own equipment, they bought it unassembled and they built it. That was pretty common. So beekeeping, I guess when I started, it was very hands-on, build your own boxes, nail them together with a hammer. Everybody did it. There was no such thing as an assembled box that was pre-dipped and coated and had propolis on the inside, all ready for you. It wasn't that at all. I'm not saying that's bad, but I'm saying that that's how, I guess, do-it-yourself beekeeping was at one point. It was almost like off-gridding. Off-grid is huge if you don't know about it. People getting off the grid, that's called. It's not just electric, but they're off-grid when it comes to everything. Where they get their water, they're off-grid with water, their gardening. It's big on YouTube, off-grid, But beekeeping, it seems like it doesn't have to be that complicated. And so I do think there's an element in beekeeping where It is made to appear to be complicated so that these products can be sold to kind of dangle as a carrot out in front of beekeepers for beekeepers to think that if I buy that product, it will save the day, save my hive, because I really don't know how to do anything else. And so we have to realize that you really don't need a lot of products in beekeeping. In fact, here, let me give you a little bit of, I guess, my personal opinion on you starting as a beekeeper. Maybe if you're within 5 years, under 5 years of keeping bees, I would start out very, I guess, minimal. Start out beekeeping as minimal as you can. I would recommend starting with a Langstroth. I'm not putting down other types of hives. Langstroth has been the old standby hive. It's the most studied hive. Bees are studied the most in Langstroth's hives just because they've been around forever. A lot of parts and pieces transfer very easily to Langstroth hives. You don't have to try to make a new feeder to fit that strange size or anything. Langstroths are all compatible with everything. So I would recommend starting with a Langstroth, and then I would recommend going as simple as you can. You know, what do you need? You need a bottom board. You need your deep box or boxes to put your brood in. You need some honey supers, and then you need inner cover, top cover, a hive tool, a hat and a veil, and a smoker. That's kind of it. That's really all you need to start bees. You need your bees. You just need the very basic things. Start with that and try to just put blinders on so you're not tempted to want to buy all the other gizmos and gadgets to help your hives be wonderful. Because really, that's all the bees want. The bees just want a place to build a hive, and then they'll do pretty good. And so the first few years, you're going to be learning. You're going to be applying your knowledge of bees. You're going to be increasing your knowledge bank, your skills, and you don't need a lot of gizmos and gadgets to do that. I'm not anti-product. I'm not anti-conference. I'm not anti-science. I'm a certified master beekeeper through the Eastern Apicultural Society. It's very scientific based, but I'm just saying, don't drown in a sea of complicated beekeeping things. Don't die trying to figure out beekeeping because you're overwhelmed with all the science, with all the knowledge, with all the fear of messing up, that you're not keeping up with everybody else or you're not doing what everybody's telling you to do. Take a breath and do it the way you want to. Start out. Try to master the basics of beekeeping. That's really crucial. What are the basics? How does a hive work? What's the anatomy of a colony? What is a worker? What is a drone? What is a queen? How do they draw wax? How do they make wax? Where do they get wax from? You know, how does a queen mate? How often does she mate? How many eggs a day does a queen lay? I don't understand. You know, you might say to yourself, I don't understand how they make honey, when they make honey, when do I extract it? How do I know it's ready to be extracted? How do I know when to add another box? You know, those are the basics of beekeeping. Don't start looking beyond all of that, looking for gizmos and gadgets until you first figure out those very basic things. That's how you really are going to come to master beekeeping. And then when you get to be really, I'm not talking about becoming a certified master beekeeper, but when you master the craft, then you can decide if you want to buy a bunch of things. But I guarantee you this, when you master the craft, you'll be able to make better decisions on your purchases. You're going to save yourself a ton of money by keeping your bees alive without having to buy everything out there to do it, because you're going to know how to handle bees. Wow, I love that. I hope that's encouraging. I really think that's the way every beekeeper really needs to approach beekeeping. Now, I just made a cool video that I want you to take a look at just for you. I worked hard on this, so I'd love for you to watch this video where I explain how you extract honey. A lot of people don't even know how to extract honey after they get a hive, and they're overwhelmed with, what if I mess it up? When do I extract it? How do I know it's ready to be extracted? How do I bottle it? How do I filter it? Got a video right here. See you guys over there.